It seems Prince William knew, and of course senior members of the British monarchy. So why did they allow this particular individual to go along with this, well, seemingly now, allegedly, perpetual lie? As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, nice to see you. Thank you so much as ever for joining me, and thank you, by the way, for all your support for the recent episode of By Royal Appointment. I think you'll agree. A lot to get through, right? I mean, just an incredible time right now for the monarchy. And as I pointed out in the video regarding, of course, His Majesty the King's health and other issues like that, really, you know, regardless of what you think, you have to remember health is the number one thing, isn't it? You know, it's the most important thing. You know, everybody talks about being wealthy and rich or famous or successful. Without your health, it's very difficult to achieve any of those things. Am I right? Absolutely. We'll have a lovely wave. Am I right, though? And the thing is, you only realise that. It's a terrible thing, isn't it? Unless, of course, you've been unfortunate when you were younger with an illness or something. Normally, you only learn that lesson later in life. And have you noticed as well, seemingly, you know, the people that don't necessarily live the most cherished of lives, well, suddenly, apparently, you know, they can keep going regardless. And this is, of course, what, well, Prince William found out, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. You see, what's interesting about this particular development, and this is what I like to share with you on a bigger scale, as I've often said, you know, it's, you get the headlines, right? And then people dive in and they dissect. It's better to just sit back, learn a bit, meet the people that are relevant to the story, develop it yourself and think, okay, well, where would that be? Who said that and at what point? And it gives you a fuller, broader picture of what truly went on, literally behind the scenes. You see, when Meghan and Harry first got together, the story was, and this was a story that was backed up, let's not forget, by the palace, because, you know, nobody wanted to offend Markle, simply because, of course, they could sense this was a bit of a bubbling rage, and this is the bit where I'm complexed, and I'd love your opinion on this. You see, she sat down with the BBC, and no, she didn't know him, and she just asked, was he nice? And I mean, what poppycock, right? You know, you've never heard of this guy, yet you're an ardent Princess Diana fan. Even your own friends and family have said that, no, that's not true. You knew a lot about the British monarchy. Some might say that Meghan Markle studied them with a sort of forensic, you know, detail, as it were, simply because she knew incredible amounts. And this, of course, over the period of time, was slipped up, even during conversations with His Majesty the King, who was then, of course, the Prince of Wales, including conversations with the disgraced now Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. Now, as Fergie famously said, she didn't really know Meghan that well. And in fairness, they didn't. But the brief conversations that they had, apparently Sarah Ferguson assumed that all of this information had come from her daughter. Because remember, Princess Eugenie was a chum of Meghan Markle. This is long before, you know, the sort of inset of the romance and is he nice and all that sort of stuff. Meghan kept coming over to the United Kingdom because she was told by her management team at the time and the PR team that this would be an inroad for you, simply because, get this, the show, as we know, was filmed in the beautiful land of Canada, Toronto, and so consequently she had something to talk about, and it gave, you know, the passion for that, right? And again, you can just see exactly how all of this now has worked in her favour. You get the picture. Moving forward, literally, William gleaned this, and we're not quite sure at this point at what point he realised exactly what a bombshell Markle was going to be delivering the British monarchy. Because at this point, Eugenie and Beatrice were reasonably sort of on side with, of course, the Prince and Princess of Wales. Not at that point, of course, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. But, you know, William sort of, how can you put this nicely, as I was told, he sort of felt slightly sorry for them, you know, because ultimately they, again, many might suggest, played the victim. But what was really clear, and this was the point of where, when he told his younger brother to slow down, he had been given a lot of information, again, allegedly, by Eugenie regarding this actress that Harry was hanging around with. But Harry, as the Queen famously said, was blinkered by this whole thing. Right? Just completely blinkered, didn't notice anything, just did what she, you know, what he wanted to do. Now, where this really takes a really strange twist is, according to that source, Eugenie really went into great detail about her mother's role and how she got a title, how she kept a title, and how she was still living in Royal Lodge alongside her ex-husband, right? And this is, again, pivotal to the story. You can see the cogs now working clearly in Meghan Markle's mind. So the real thing is, you didn't need to be a member of the royal family. You could still keep the title, and then this could become incredibly lucrative. Capitalise on the fact that you've now got a very unstable, some people might say, and very much in need of a mother figure in Prince Harry. And as we all know, allegedly she wore the perfume, she treated him badly, threatened not to meet him on the date. All of these sort of things that really make a boy jump too. Very clever indeed. And on top of all of that, according to that source, talking to Eugenie, Meghan said that she had no desire to go down the aisle again. Having tried that once, she didn't think marriage was for her. So again, you could see why opening up, clearly, maybe Eugenie thought, well, it's nothing going to go wrong here, there's nothing going to happen, it's fine, we're all right, that sort of stuff. Moving forward, of course, what William then found out was this particular conversation. And as you can see, this whole thing has blown up, hasn't it? It's just incredibly blown up into this, well, this is how the story fully developed. When the Queen basically spoke to Harry, and let's not forget, even the Queen reached out to the then British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and said, could you have a word, that sort of stuff. She was clearly exasperated because nobody could get through. So clearly, Meghan Markle decided that the best way forward was to continue down this path, the love of her life, the handsome fox, right? Marry him in this spectacular royal wedding. What do you get? Everything you possibly need. And when you've done that, you can retreat back to a life that you wanted with all the trappings. And this again is fascinating because, as I said, this really is the root of the argument. The one where Harry detailed in his book. Now, I'm suggesting, right, chums, that perhaps, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's always good to share this stuff, maybe he wasn't that bright and wasn't aware of it, Men who get manipulated don't necessarily understand the format. Meghan was playing this Scottish role of she's given up her career, she's going to give up everything, and remember, Harry regurgitated that story about Markle. Time and time again, what she'd given up for him, not what he was giving up for her. But Eugenie, you see, really struck a light bulb for Meghan, simply because she explained how her mother was able to write a book, appear on chat shows, appear on television, and really Meghan Markle was quite keen to distance herself from this association with the Duchess of York because she didn't want anybody working out the plot in a future role down the line. And also remember, and this is the interesting bit, and if you think, well, how conniving and how clever many suggest Meghan Markle was, when she was at that function, one of the very first functions, I believe, the Christmas do, alongside Her Majesty the Queen, was Prince Andrew. And if you remember, and Harry repeated this, right? The bottom line was, she said, who's that guy standing with, your grandmother? And he said, now Harry at this point was utterly convinced that Meghan Markle had never checked him out. She had no idea. But then who's really telling the truth? Because Eugenie says that she showed her a lot of pictures of her life back in England, big social events with the Queen, with other senior members of the British monarchy. And so Meghan Markle never thought that this lady called Princess Eugenie and her father, the Duke of York, she didn't put the two together and think, why would this man be standing next to the Queen? According to Harry, well, as we now know, apparently, right, well, basically, this was just maybe somebody helping him. And this is exactly what convinced Harry as to why Meghan was genuine. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, she had an excellent tutor, whether she realised it or not, on exactly how to extract herself from the monarchy and go on, and she thought, to become a billionaire. Problem is, she's just stuck with a pile of jam in a cupboard that clearly nobody wants. You get the picture. Neil Shaw, Kensington, London.